Keep going over that.
Well, yeah, this is just confirmation that Obama is no different than Bush, and this has been the problem for the last 4 decades, basically. We've had presidents of both parties have continued to push the same agenda, which is sacrificing our national sovereignty and also destroying state sovereignty. And it's being done economically. It's being done militarily. NORTHCOM is the Northern Command encompasses Canada and Mexico, too, not just the United States.
No, that's what they're saying. NORTHCOM runs this perimeter.
Exactly. So this is the integration of military, economics, and eventually government and law all into one Northern Hemisphere block, just like the EU. And people in Europe were called conspiracy theorists and nuts when they saw what was coming to what happened to them, and it happened anyway. So we got to get over this worrying about being labeled a conspiracy theorist. It's right there.
Well, that's just a term they throw out to get people to not look at what you're saying. They just say, "Oh, conspiracy theory." And you're like, "No, I have the document right here." No, don't look.
Or chill your speech. They don't want you to talk about it, so you self-censor.
Oh yeah, what'd you think of the Tucson thing? They didn't just go after the Second Amendment. For every attack on the Second Amendment, there were 2 or 3 against the First Amendment, and making the Congress people sit together and saying, we can't criticize now, all this collective guilt, and then it turns out he's a liberal drug head.
I think it's going to blow up in their faces. What they really did there is they jumped the shark. They demonized half the country. They've already called half the country racist. If you disagree with Obama, all of a sudden you're a racist. So even though I'm a quarter Mexican, hardly a white supremacist, but they try to label you this or that. And the same thing happened in the wake of the Arizona shooting. They tried to say, well, this is all the fault of the political right. The entire spectrum across the country, half the country is to blame for this. And all it does is tick off that segment of the American population and make them wake up and realize that, look, I'm being demonized now. Not just that guy over there that talks on the radio. They're saying that I'm...
It confirms for them that this is a tyranny.
And it confirms for them the propaganda machine. So now, so Southern Poverty Law Center is becoming less and less effective when they try to call me a racist or a crazy person or whatever.
Or Glenn Beck.
Because they're calling half the country crazy and racist and violent.
Or you don't like health care, you don't like black people. That's obviously ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, and it's blowing up in their face. I think more people, because of the internet especially, they're starting to see the truth. One drop of truth is an antidote to a bucket full of crap.
We've got about 15 minutes left with you. I've had a lot of questions, a lot of issues. What's most important for you right now? What's important that you're hearing from your members and supporters? What's going on with Oath Keepers?
I think the most important thing is for people to recognize the illegitimacy of martial law and to rediscover the Constitution's emergency provisions, like calling forth the militia of the several states. That's what you do to handle domestic. You don't rely.
They know the locale. They're truly prepared. Have you heard? I've been trying to call Homeland Security for 4 days. They won't answer the phone. To test if I could report terrorism. They won't answer the phone.
They probably know it's you.
No, we've tried from other phones, or they pass us around and say call locals, and they won't talk to us.
So it's not about actually getting information. They don't want to really...
No, these are phone numbers they put on flyers. You call, and it just rings and rings.
So it's all about conditioning then.
Yeah, they're just out there scaring everybody, knowing there's not any real terror that they don't promote.
So the biggest thing we're looking at, well, here's one thing I wanted to tell you about. I'm not sure if you knew, but there was a Special Forces colonel who was tasked with giving training at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And the training he was ordered to design was so offensive to him that he resigned his commission and left the Army.
No, I didn't know. Tell us about it.
Well, this is where you had 1st Infantry Division, 1st Combat Brigade of the 3rd ID. That's the NORTHCOM attached unit is stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia.
That's Brigade Homeland.
That's right. So he was told to go there and conduct training, and it was so offensive to him. We don't know what he was told to do because we haven't been able to get a hold of him yet. But it's been confirmed by 2 former SF that this is an accurate story, that he found it so objectionable what they told him to go train the troops to do that he resigned his commission and left the Army.
Well, let me tell you separately, I've confirmed what they're training the Guard and regular Army liaisons attached. I've confirmed they're training to set up checkpoints, run IDs, license plate reading cameras are already going in, and they just pull you out and put you in vans, trucks, or buses. I mean, they're actually getting ready for real red and blue list.
Well, that's why from the very beginning, 2 years ago, on our list of orders we will not obey are orders to round up the American people or to blockade cities or to go into a state with force unless they've been invited by the state legislature. And so we want the current serving to understand that there have to be some serious hard lines. Martial law is totally unconstitutional, illegitimate, nowhere in the Constitution, and it has no basis, no moral force, no legal force. They should resist it.
It's an illegal order.
Absolutely. the most illegal order that can possibly be. And this is the problem: is they've tried to they are grafting the foreign laws of war onto our domestic laws. They're saying they can do the same thing here that they've done overseas to people in conquered Iraq or conquered Afghanistan. Their whole logic, Obama's now claiming the authority and the power to assassinate American citizens that he thinks are enemy combatants, and he says he has the power to do this off a secret list that cannot be reviewed by the courts.
That is pure treason.
Well, absolutely it is. It's making war on the American people. So that's how I define treason.
That is the purest form.
So what they're doing,
he is tyrannous, but remember, he's just the figurehead. But through that office, he's preparing to try to deploy what Julius Caesar did.
And here's the problem. People say, well, it's only happened to one or two people. But that's the problem, is that you don't wait for the full effect. You don't wait for the pretext to happen, the next terrorist attack, the next 9/11. You stand on the principle. You oppose the principle. And the principle is he can treat us like occupied Germany or Japan. He can treat us like a foreign enemy and do here at home what is done abroad to a foreign enemy. That's the claim. So we must resist that, declare it for what it is, illegitimate, void from inception, has no force and authority. And any order given like that should be refused by the standing military.
Well, that's another issue. TSA that won't stick their hands down people's pants, who worry about the radiation, they're being fired. So government is trying to sift through and create the cadres that will do whatever they're told.
And you should opt out every time. I always do. And unfortunately, you shouldn't have to be a lawyer to get respect. But last time I went through a checkpoint, I said, hey, just don't put your hands on my pants. The guy said, I can't guarantee that. I said, well, I'm a lawyer. I guess we'll dance afterwards. And he was like, whoa. And he went and got a supervisor, and his supervisor handling with kid gloves. But you shouldn't have to be an attorney to get respect and to have your privacy and your rights respected. It's a travesty.
Yeah, that's what the few times I've had the issue come up, I just go, look, I'm a radio talk show host. Usually know who I am anyways, and are asking for signature, what do you call it, autographs. A lot of them aren't bad people, but they're trying to get rid of those and trying to hire the bad ones. Because they can set that precedent to line us up, to search us. I mean, this is classic what's happening.
And they don't go to buses, and this is why we oppose, categorically.
They're already doing it.
Yeah, checkpoints are absolutely unconstitutional. That's like right out of Nazi Germany. So I don't think there's any legitimacy at all. And I don't care what the courts say. It's not American. It's un-American.
Plus, they're discredited because they just canceled the virtual fence. They never really built any of the physical fence. I mean, the southern border is wide open in a country collapsing into bedlam, and they're not worried about that. They're running random checkpoints on highways around the country.
100 miles inland, yeah.
Well, not even that. They're now all over the country. We've got the articles coming in, TSA, National Guard. They have families drive under X-ray machines. They're doing it now, Stewart. I mean, I see the reports every week. They're just pouring in.
Yeah, they're conditioning us for more of this stuff. So, we have to resist. And if you can get your sheriff to help you, that's why the sheriff first bill in Montana is important. Any bills to back the sheriff up with the authority of the law of the state is good.
Absolutely. We're on the march. The empire is on the run. We will rebuild the republic. We'll be right back with Stewart Rhodes and Webster Tarpley. For two more segments, this 5 minute and the next, we've got Stewart Rhodes, founder of Oath Keepers. And we've also got a fellow in here, John Shirley, who's a sergeant currently in the Houston PD, one of the biggest in the country. He has to give the proviso that he speaks privately as a citizen here, but he's with us getting into the subject of the federalization of police.
Well, thanks for having me, Alex. Unfortunately, I have to say that I'm speaking for me and for Oath Keepers, the state chapter president of Oath Keepers. But I'm concerned the federal government has turned our police forces into an arm of the federal government just de facto by the fact that a lot of our training is standardized already to this day. So all police departments are basically trained the same. There's so many.
They're trying to get rid of your codes, your local codes.
Exactly, and not just that, but they're also the training is all standardized, and the money that comes from federal government to run programs for the police departments with all the strings attached to it.
And the feds are writing the codes now. Absolutely.
And, a police chief will not cross the federal government because to do so means the money's yanked away or the money has to be paid back. So they basically run the police departments as it is today.
Are the police officers starting to wake up?
Yes, I believe they are. They're quiet about it, but there's no question that when stuff comes down, the officers question the city or the department initially all the time. They're going to ask questions.
Do you see them trying? Well, instead of me asking questions, what do you think is most important for folks to know about the federalization?
They need to get their local law enforcement off the federal teat and have them stop taking the federal money and start taking back over their law enforcement to where they're not seen as police officers or law enforcement officers, but their officers are seen as peace officers who are actively in the community, working for the community, and of course having fidelity to the Constitution.
I've also seen a lot of instances where it seems like departments, the bad departments, try to protect people that act outrageously, and then that demonizes all the good officers that are out there.
That's definitely a concern. I mean, we had in Houston the beating video that just came out in the public several days ago, and you know, it pains me to think how that taints the whole police department of over 5,000 people by the misactions of 8 or 9. But I will say, at least in Houston, they are prosecuting them. So hopefully
yeah, that's the good news. A lot of places they don't.
Right.
And then that freaks everybody out. But why did you get involved in Oath Keepers?
Whew. You know, I stumbled upon the Oath Keepers website before they even rolled out the program officially, and I don't remember how I got onto it. But I read the 10 orders that we will not do, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. It's like, my God, this is exactly what we need. We need police that understand the seriousness of the oath they take.
Well, look at every other country. It's always the military and police that are used to bring in tyranny. Liberty is a very rare thing. I mean, this is a disease that almost every country catches.
That's right. We should realize the rarity of it. And that's why people should not try to look for silver bullets like military coups. They should get back to what the founders gave us. The lessons of history are written right in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. We've got to stick to that plan.
Well, I mean, if we do go into a full depression and people are running around starving, if 90% of people were self-sufficient in the Great Depression, and they estimate in that 10 years close to 7 million starved to death, people were very moral back then on average. Today, I mean, what we saw on, Black Friday with people rioting just for a cheap Xbox, it's going to be scary, and it's designed to make us beg for the martial law because it'll actually be needed if we don't have local control.
That's why we must preempt it by getting all our veterans, including police veterans, in fact, to get up, like I said, get off the couch and go and strengthen their communities and get ready. And we should be starting police auxiliaries and reserves. As we have state economies collapse and local economies collapse, they can't afford officers. So there'll be like 2 or 3 John Shirleys, and then they should be backed up by a police auxiliary of volunteer citizens to be there to help them keep order when there's rioting.
That's under local control.
Exactly.
Not the evil clone of that the feds are trying to build right now.
Not federalized police officers from someplace else being brought in, as happened in Katrina.
Yeah, stay there. Back in 1 minute.